Hi, so I just wanted to give you a quick update in terms of some of the trends and some of the data points that I've been observing that are essentially coming out of China in real time today. So essentially, we are just trying to really triangulate and to understand the state of the Chinese economy today, and by extension, understanding consumer sentiments, how the Chinese consumer population is feeling, and how they are spending, etc., etc. And of course, by understanding those data points, you can kind of figure out and feel the temperature on how it's going to affect some of these Chinese companies that you have in your portfolio. Because of course, if the Chinese consumer is optimistic and they're willing to spend again, many of these earnings reports are probably going to be a lot more optimistic in 2023. So that's essentially the baseline and the context of this video itself. And on top of that, this video is essentially inspired by one of the previous video that I've created around 2 months back with the video title, I think China stocks will explode in 2023. And of course, for those of you who haven't watched that video yet, remember to go in and watch first. And by exploding, I mean exploding to the upside because they managed to realize their equity valuation rather than exploding out into oblivion. But anyhow, I do love the nature and the idea of the internet because everything has kind of has an audit trail. You probably cannot get away by saying something and then delete thereafter, because who knows, somebody out there might be recording what you say and just archiving it somewhere. But that said, I think for long-time investors, especially those that has vested interest in many of these Chinese companies, if you just pull out their charts, even in their recent 1 year or 6 months or year-to-date chart, they essentially underperform the US counterparts greatly. And I would just like to kind of maybe provide some opinions at the later part of this video. But let's look at the raw data and raw facts first. So before we even begin, of course, don't forget to smash that cute little like button for me as well. So being avid investors yourselves, you might be flirting with the idea of starting your very own business or company after studying so many of them. If so, you can actually cross business admin off your to-do list with today's sponsor, Awesome. So Awesome will get your business name reserved, your business registered, and pre-approval on your business bank account. Zero paperwork, zero hassle. It's the human, hassle-free way to start your very own business. So they will essentially walk you through setting up a very new business with your new accountant in a few easy steps. And it's like having a finance manager at a much lower cost. So as a bonus, if you choose one of the packages that they offer today, they will also help you incorporate your business for free. If you're interested in starting a business, you can click the link in the description box down below to get 16% off your first year. Thank you, Awesome, for sponsoring this video. But anyhow, before we go through the data points, I think this interview, or basically some of the sound bites or some of the important factors that China's new Premier Li Qiang said during this 1.5 hour interview is critically important in setting the foundational understanding and context, especially for those of you who came in without much understanding and appreciation of where the state of the Chinese economy is today. So to the first point, so this is his answer towards China's shrinking population. So he said that China now has 900 million strong workforce, with 15 million joining the workforce annually. So the average years of education for new people entering the workforce is 14 years, which means that most of them have university education or at least a diploma. So I would kind of just put a side note here, or put a checkpoint here. I do understand that I received many comments around, especially on my YouTube channel, asking me, hey, Chiking, are you not worried of China's shrinking population? What's going to happen to GDP growth? Maybe they're going to shrink alongside, etc., etc. So I think that the shrinking population crisis in China today is an extremely grave matter. And fear not, for us as investors, we are extremely worried of what's going to happen. I would believe that the Chinese government is as worried, if not even more worried. There is no easy solution towards this entire issue. Let's not hope that there is this magic pill that China can take and then suddenly everybody starts having babies again. That said, you can see that overall, this is just a very blanket statement and very blanket observation that I have on the side as an international viewer. You can see that there's a change in positioning. They no longer want to target the lower echelons of the value chain. They want to move up, they want to upskill their workers, and they want to essentially reap more quality or reap more value in terms of the end product. They don't want to just provide cheap labor or cheap materials, etc. They want to be the one innovating, creating the technology, creating stuff and building stuff. So in this case, you can see that they no longer want to go for quantity and they're currently in pursuit of quality. So whether will China be successful or not, we will keep our eyes peeled. But at least in terms of what I'm investing in and the exposure that I'm getting from China, there's a reason why I'm tilting towards technology and tilting towards quality companies. So in terms of the government's relationship with private enterprises, of course, Premier Lee said that China will continue to support private enterprises according to market-based, law-based standards. This is very fluffy because even Chairman Xi himself also said that he's encouraging investors to go back to China. So this is the tricky part because trust is a relatively complex concept and topic. There is no very clear distinction in terms of, oh, I trust you or I don't trust you. You can see it in terms of capital inflows and outflows, and definitely private investor sentiments have been impacted. For those of you who have stayed on until today, like myself, I'm pretty impressed by your iron balls, but in that case, we do need to keep our eyes peeled in terms of how other investors are looking towards China as an investment vehicle and country. Now, regarding the US-China relationship, Premier Lee did say that all the foreign CEOs, including Americans, they all see China as a great opportunity, and I do agree. So China and the US should and must cooperate, and no one wins from containment and confrontation. And regarding rural development, he did stress the importance of localized development, and the government must respect local cultures and custom and situations when considering rural development. So last but not least, for all you Chinese experts out there, Lee actually drank from his one clear glass of water several times. They had to refill it once, and he coughed once. So we all know that these are important things that you guys care about. These are clearly not important. This Twitter thread is just trying to emphasize on the ridiculous amount of data or useless things on the sidelines that spectators and pundits are looking at. But anyhow, I think one of the core focus is in terms of how the Chinese economy is doing today and what the government is doing. So one of the key factors is really understanding liquidity. So just updated at the end of March, actually the PBOC, which is the People's Bank of China, actually injected 239 billion yuan into the banking system via a 7 days reverse repo on Thursday. So for some context, this 239 billion yuan is minuscule to the entire Chinese economy. But we can see that the government is looking towards trying to positively stimulate the economy, but not at such a great extent compared to its US counterparts. Because we know in the US, they essentially just run the money printer and it just went brr. But in China's case, they do adopt a more pragmatic and a more careful approach. So there are definitely both pros and cons to this approach because evidently, based on their slow release of liquidity, it doesn't really rally enough confidence from both consumers and investors. But that said, because of this careful nature, China's inflation rate has been largely contained compared to the rest of the world. So on top of that, another data point that we can look at is the activities of banks. And you can see corporate loans actually surged 47% year on year, and loans extensions to medium long term up 77% year on year. And this is based on the UBS report, really trying to dive deeper into understanding the pulse of China Bank's activity today. More importantly, there is also clearly signs of greater activity picking up in the equities market, as Chinese mainland stock market actually added 1.68 million new investors in February, and this is up 98% month on month. And of course, one of the comments did say that Chinese FOMO is real. It's true, I guess, because the entire stock market rally in the earlier part of the year, especially in Jan-Feb, you can see that Alibaba, Tencent, they were up like 100% in a very short span of time. And right now, they are all slowly cooling down. Is this short-term in nature, or whether is this rally sustainable or not? We'll keep our eyes peeled. But I think one more important factor that we need to consider is really the real estate crisis. So this entire China Layman 2.0 issue, it has dragged on since 2020. We are out into the crisis for more than 2 years now, and there is clearly some signs of recovering and some sort of optimism coming out from the Chinese consumers as well. So just at the end of March, China's top 100 developers actually see their March sales plus 29.2% year on year and plus 42.3% month on month to around 660 billion yuan. So you can see that this graph, the yellow all the way to the pink one, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022 and 2023. You can see that from 2020 onwards, means the blue bar onwards, there's always been a huge reduction, and 2021 there was a slight recovery, and after that just a continual abysmal performance. But that said, if you just look at the pink bar and compare it to the previous year, it does seem to trend in the right direction as optimism and basically consumer sentiments start to pick up again. And also, according to a JPM report, China's 60-city primary home sales actually hiked 54% year on year in the past week. So just another data point from the China's Taxation Administration, the housing market actually showed signs of recovery in Jan to Feb, with sales revenue turning positive and increasing by 2.3% year on year, a 19.5 point increase over the whole of last year. And in March, the growth rate actually improved further from 17.9% year on year. So on top of the housing issue, we then want to also understand or really have a pulse into understanding what about the Chinese consumer sentiments. Will they continue spending money? And is the optimism kicking in holistically? And you can see that economists also actually expect China's retail sales to have grown 3.5% in Jan to Feb from the same period of a year earlier. And according to the median estimate in a Bloomberg survey, reversing from a 1.8% dip in December. So this is essentially a common man. Some might not have the ability to buy properties left and right in China, but I think largely speaking, we do see this confidence brimming in the entire Chinese economy, and it's slowly overflowing to other sectors as well. More importantly, when you look at the Chinese government stance, it does seem like they are also on a full marketing mode as it is committed to opening up, including international finance. So security regulators was also said to have met up with Bridgewater, HSBC, Manulife, Temasek, Allianz, etc. To essentially market their products and to kind of draw in investors' confidence again. So it does seem like investor sentiments are also turning for the better, where everybody is essentially chasing. Inflows into emerging market equities are clipping along at around $152 billion on an annualized basis. If the pace continues, this would mark the group's largest ever inflows. So in terms of the basket of emerging market equities. And of course, there's also a great change in tone from the government's perspective, as there's a big change to Beijing's treatment of tech champions. And they should allow scientists or even founders to retain greater control of their companies. And China's Xi Jinping actually pledges support for innovative firms amid US rivalry. More importantly, I think in terms of taxation and in terms of how they're going to stimulate demand, China will also cut 1.8 trillion yuan in terms of taxes and fee burden for business in 2023. So this is largely in line in terms of the objective of them trying to spur the economy and to basically bring China out of this rut, especially when they have experienced 2 years of slow growth. That said, I think many investors would then be pounding on the table. Hey Chiking, you are showing me so many positive data points. What's happening to the stock? Why are many of these Chinese stocks, basically Alibaba, Tencent and friends, it's not reflective and it's not indicative of the share price itself? So I'll agree to that assessment because that's a known fact. You can just do a quick Google search. The share price is there. However, as an investor, I'm not really concerned of how the stock price is going to move in the short term. Especially so when many of you back holders out here have been holding the stock for more than 1 year. Holding on for another few quarters, I don't think it's that hard. But anyhow, personally as an investor, I would like to focus a lot more in terms of the business and the environment the business is operating in, rather than how the stock price is moving. And there are 1,001 reasons as to why the stock is moving a particular fashion. I'm more interested in how all this information and data points are going to affect the business cash flows and the business profits. So hope you guys enjoyed the discussion, and I'll see you in the next video. But more importantly, I'll finally see you on the moon. Goodbye.